For 4 years, Americans believed they were living under the Biden presidency. Executive orders flowed, pardons were granted, and wars funded. Policies transformed the nation. But what if I told you there's evidence that Joe Biden may have signed only one document in his entire presidency? What if every major decision, every constitutional action, every presidential directive came not from an elected leader, but from a machine operated by shadow figures? The most devastating political scandal in American history is unfolding right now. We've been covering it here. We have an update. And when you hear what Biden's own doctor did today under oath, you will understand why the entire house of cards is collapsing. Stay tuned. We have the receipts. Now remember, freedom is never more than one generation from extinction, and that is why the Tuttle Twins created the most effective Liberty First content for kids. Their monthly magazine teaches children about economics, liberty, and responsibility through comics and activities and real-world lessons. While schools push socialist ideology and government dependence, Tuttle Twins gives your kids the intellectual armor to think for themselves. They'll learn why free markets work, how government grows, and what real freedom means. Right now, subscribe a loved one as a gift for your granddaughter, your grandson, your niece, your nephew, for their birthday, for Christmas, for Easter, for whatever, for only $56 a year. That's nothing. Those $56 are seeds planted into their brain of freedom. $56 a year, TuttleTwins.com/next. We get it. My family loves it. I am a super fan of the Tuttle Twins, and you will be too. So don't let your child be indoctrinated. Teach them to think. Protect their minds before it's too late. TuttleTwins.com/next. It is linked down below. Now, we've been covering the Autopen scandal for quite some time. Here's our exclusive angle inside the White House briefing room on May 22nd. But wait, this is all lead up, okay? Just bear with me on this. I got to get you caught up. I got to bring you up to speed. Because what just happened is game-changing. This was May 22nd. Peter Doocy of Fox News grilling the White House, asking Trump to declassify the smoking gun files.
The president can declassify anything that he wants. Has he looked to see if there are any records here that would contradict what we've been told about Joe Biden's decline?
He has not directed anyone, to my knowledge, to look into that, but surely I can ask him if he intends to. I think the president has spoken on this pretty extensively, and I have spoken about it extensively from this podium as well, how it was truly one of the worst political scandals this country has ever seen, that the previous administration covered up the decline in the former president's mental and physical ability. And it's now all coming out, but the American people knew the truth, and that's one of the many reasons why President Trump won the election on November 5th.
And President Trump says that he basically thinks unelected Biden staffers concealed his decline so that they could use the levers of power for their own personal gain.
Well, look, that's not just the president thinking that, Peter. There's a new book out. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. Again, a little bit too late, because the American people knew the truth on this from the very beginning. And there were reporters in this room, including some from your network, Peter, I'll give you a little bit of credit here, who have said that clearly Joe Biden's staffers were engaging in this cover-up. So this is common sense. This isn't the president making it up. These are facts that are now finally being revealed.
Right, and I'm not saying the president's making it up, but he specifically talks about the Autopen. He thinks that staffers were using this Autopen. Mm-hmm. Is there some kind of like a badge that you have to swipe to use an Autopen? Is there a record of that?
I can tell you here at this White House, the president signs any document that has legal implications. The president signs every executive order. He signs every proclamation. He signs pretty much every document that is needed for the president's signature, with the exception of maybe some letters to children. From what we have heard and seen, that was not the case in the previous administration, and the president is raising good questions that are worth looking into. Peter.
Good questions worth looking into. Here's more from Peter Doocy. June 24th. It's confirmed that those involved, this is Wall Street Apes writing this, it's confirmed those involved with the Biden Autopen scandal will meet in a closed-door meeting with Congress. The whole thing done in secret. Remember, Peter Doocy only found one signature, may have actually been signed by Biden in 4 years. The FBI should have arrested them all. Watch this.
In fact, if you look, Peter Doocy here outside the West Wing of the White House, and there's rarely a good reason to bring a prop to a White House briefing. But this afternoon, after spending a couple hours going through justice.gov with a color printer, I had an idea. There is one that looks different. It looks authentic. In fact, if you look at the last name, it almost looks like the president was having a hard time spelling his last name there.
Very interesting props if you want to bring them to my office later so I can take a closer look.
Joe Biden was the president. He signed so many different things. Why was the one thing he signed the day before he left so messy? Peter Doocy here outside the West Wing.
Because that's the one he actually touched. June 18th, Democrats are dead wrong. The Autopen cannot be used if the president does not direct it.
There's no else. A number
Here is
of your
the Oversight Project and a committee hearing on the Hill. Mr. Theodore Wald speaking.
A number of your colleagues on the Democrat side have said, well, there's an OLC opinion here. We don't need to talk anymore. There's an OLC opinion. It says you can use the Autopen. The opening paragraph of that OLC opinion says you can use the Autopen, but only when the president directs that you do so under his decision-making power, right? It is very clear again and again that the president actually has to make the decision. That cannot be delegated to a staffer or an advisor. And there's no indication here that anyone other than staff were making these decisions.
Exactly, because Joe Biden was cognitively impaired. The entire world saw it. So how could he approve anything? We're not done. It gets deeper. Here we have July 2nd, breaking news, Autopen scandal. Unelected officials, Mike Donald and Steve Ricchetti, Bruce Reed, Anthony Bernal, First Lady Jill Biden, and Anthony Tomasini ran the country while the president was incapacitated. Pardons for Hunter Biden, Adam Schiff, and Anthony Fauci now all question. Here is Byron Donalds, Representative Byron Donalds on Fox Business.
We
need to listen to what Axios reporter Alex Thompson had to say about the inner circle controlling Biden at the end of his term. Watch this.
The people that were in charge were Mike Donilon, Steve Ricchetti, Bruce Reed, Anthony Bernal, the First Lady's chief of staff, the First Lady, and Annie Tomasini. Those were the people that saw him the most and that had the most control over what he was doing and his day-to-day.
Well, clearly, Congressman, he is naming names. And we have the Washington Post columnist, Sally Quinn, accusing former First Lady of elder abuse. What do you say to that, Congressman? Elder abuse.
It is elder abuse. It is. There's no doubt about that. And all of these officials that were in the Biden White House, as far as I'm concerned, they need to come in front of the Oversight Committee because questions need to be answered. Last thing I will say on this is, depending on when the president truly was not in control of his mental faculties, a lot of the stuff that he did as president, in my view, should be invalidated. And the reason why is because you can't use an Autopen to run the country. It has to be from the mental capabilities and the physical capabilities of the person elected to be commander-in-chief. And so if Joe Biden could not execute the duties of his office, then why are we living under a lot of the decisions that was made by the Biden White House? So there's a lot of investigations that need to occur on this matter. This is a major scandal, in my view, the biggest one in presidential history. We can now put Watergate to bed because the Autopen is now in front of us.
The Autopen is in front of us. Okay, Joe Biden's doctor. Wait till you see what he did today. But first, here is the White House staffer who was really, the Kyle Becker writes, here is the White House staffer who was really running the Biden presidency via Autopen. Neera Tanden. Nobody elected her. Most people don't even know her name. America is screwed if there's no accountability. This is one of the biggest scandals in U.S. history. Now watch how she answers this question. Ha! See you walk away? Watch this.
A brief comment. Thank you. I just spoke with the House Oversight Committee, Majority and Minority Council. I answered every question, was pleased to discuss my public service, and
I was pleased to discuss my public service.
It was a thorough process, and I'm glad I answered every question.
Was there an effort to disguise President Biden's condition?
Absolutely not.
And that's the end of that. Was there an effort, the reporter says, an effort to disguise President Biden's condition?
Service, and it was a thorough process, and I'm glad I answered every question.
Was there an effort to disguise President Biden's condition?
Absolutely not.
I love it. I love it. They implicate themselves. Now, here's what happened today. Check this out. This Real Robert posted this 7 hours ago. This is Kevin O'Connor, Joe Biden's White House doctor. He has pleaded the Fifth and refused to testify in a closed-door House hearing. Joe Biden's doctor just pled the Fifth. Do you understand what that means? He's facing charges of perjury in violation of federal statute 18 U.S.C. 1621, tampering with evidence for altering, destroying, concealing, or falsifying evidence in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1519, racketeering in violation of 18 U.S.C. 1961, 1968, conspiracy to defraud the United States government in violation of 18 U.S.C. 371. This is him.
Are you Dr. O'Connor? I don't know.
New York Post. Biden's doctor gives interview to Post after wandering past White House briefing room.
Are you Dr. O'Connor? I don't know. How's the president's health?
It's excellent.
It is? Are you going to come to the briefing room to address us? Probably not. Could that change before the end of his term? And how is his mental cognition?
It's excellent.
It's excellent. Is there a reason you didn't perform a cognitive test on him?
You don't need to. He's here every day.
He's good every day? What about the speculation about Parkinson's disease or a related condition? Dr. O'Connor, is there anything to that speculation that there might be something related to Parkinson's that he has?
Yeah, he's good.
Okay. And the specialist's visit to the White House, does that have anything to do with that concern?
No, he's seen him 3 times. Yeah, my letter was clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so this video clearly taken during the Biden administration. I know that walkway, that pathway all too well. I've walked it up and down, past those white barriers there. Now, what's interesting is it looks like he may have exited. There's a door on the other side from the that goes out of the White House, on the other side of that little white area there. That on the other side of that white door, the white wall, there's a Secret Service booth, and there's doors that go to they call them the palm doors, and those palm doors take you out to the South Lawn, where Marine One takes off. And President Trump often, or whoever the president is, departs the White House from that area on occasion. Now, the palm doors you can also access internally the White House through that area. Now, if we go back to the beginning of this video, look at the direction he's walking. Okay, I'm going to mute the video. Look at the direction he's walking. He's in an exit pathway out, and look at all the people out there. Okay. Now, right there, boom. Okay, I want to show you something here. I'm going to put it in slow motion because this is important. I'm going to put it in super slow. Right on the other side of that fence, look at all those people. That is a massive amount of press. He's looking at that group and going, my God, how am I going to get through this? I've just been identified, and I'm getting hammered about Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Now, keep in mind, this is during the Biden administration. I'm going to get to what happened today when he pled the Fifth. But he's panicking now. He's seeing that huge group of people. He's got to navigate through that mess just to get out of the White House. And what does he do? He sees it. I mean, that's a lot of people. And that's a busy, busy day. I can feel it because I've been on those grounds on days like that. Now, I'm not sure exactly what the date was of this, but it's clearly when after the fact, after the questions that were raised about Biden's cognitive health, questions were raised about the president's physical, whether cognitive tests. You heard the reporter asking the questions. And he's handling it pretty well. He's reverting directly to the talking points that he knows he has to hit. He's looking, he's observing, he's reviewing, he's going, I am not walking through that mess, because on the other side of all those people, even more reporters. And he's just been identified by one. The minute, so what happens when you're on the ground at the White House? Because we sit there and we wait, like we're animals waiting to pounce on our prey. We wait for a member of the administration to come out so we can lunge and ask the questions. Now, of course, I'm there, and I do support our president. I support the MAGA America First agenda. So I'm not going to necessarily be pouncing on these members of the administration. But you get what I'm saying, right? He sees all those people. He knows he's walking into a potential den of reporters that are about to pounce. And he's like, no way, I'm not walking that direction. What does he do? He turns around, walks the other direction. The reporter continues to badger him. Amazing to see this footage, especially for the context of where I've been, what I've seen, what I've participated in. So what happened? What happened today? Biden doctor, Give Me Liberty, posted this 5 hours ago. Biden doctor Kevin O'Connor's response during House deposition adds more fuel to the fire of cover-up, pleading the fifth might be compelled to testify or negotiate an immunity deal. A good omen for invalidation and rollback of Autopen's action. Think about that. First of all, he pled the fifth. He doesn't want to say anything that could incriminate him. So what is he a part of? He's part of the biggest cover-up in American history. The cognitive decline of a president. Staffers taking over the Autopen and just firing off executive order after executive order after executive order, destroying this country. Probably at the direction of Barack Obama down the street. And others. He might be compelled to testify or negotiate an immunity deal. Here we have Representative James Comer says Democrats and the media know there was a cover-up when it comes to Biden's cognitive decline. We're bringing people in, and the media is not saying a word. The Democrats aren't saying a word. They know there was a cover-up, and the media knows it. Of course, the media was in on it. And now they're writing books pretending that nothing happened. Okay, so I have this. I want to present this. Schertler cited both O'Connor's responsibilities to protect patient privacy as a doctor and the Justice Department's ongoing investigation into the Biden's use of the Autopen. Oversight Dems, page 152, PM 70925. See who didn't appear at all when subpoenaed. Biden's former doc refuses to answer questions in House Republican probe. President Joe Biden's former White House physician refused on Wednesday to answer questions as part of a House Republican investigation into Biden's health and office. He invoked his rights under the Fifth Amendment during a closed-door interview with the House Oversight Committee, his attorneys and lawmakers said. Republicans on the Oversight Committee subpoenaed O'Connor last month as part of a sweeping investigation into Biden's health and mental fitness as president that claims some policies carried out during Biden's term through the use of the White House Autopen may be illegitimate if it's proven the Democrat was mentally incapacitated for some of his term. So Joe Biden's freaking doctor pleading the fifth. He won't even go. He won't even speak because he knows he would get screwed if he opened his mouth. He knows the entire house of cards would collapse. Do you understand the implications here? Biden has strongly denied that he was not in the right state of mind at any point while in office, calling the claims ridiculous and false. David Schertler, one of O'Connor's lawyers, said the doctor had no choice but to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights in testimony before the committee, citing both O'Connor's responsibilities to protect patient privacy as a doctor and the Justice Department's ongoing investigation into Biden's use of an Autopen. James Comer of Kentucky said O'Connor's refusal to testify made it clear there was a conspiracy. End of story. Right there. Boom. The American people demand transparency, but O'Connor would rather conceal the truth, Comer said in an official statement. Witnesses routinely invoke their Fifth Amendment rights in testimony to Congress. Allies of President Trump, for example, invoke their rights when refusing to testify at the committees that investigated the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Of course, they bring up, this is AOL, an article from AOL. They got to bring up January 6th, of course. Comer has sought testimony from nearly a dozen former Biden aides as he conducts his investigation, including former White House Chiefs of Staff Ron Klain, Jeff Zients, former senior advisors Mike Donilon and Nina Dunn, former Deputy Chief of Staff Bruce Reed, former Counselor of the President Steve Ricchetti, former Deputy Chief of Staff Ann Tomasini, and a former Assistant to the President Ashley Williams. He's also issued a subpoena for Anthony Bernal, the former Chief of Staff to former First Lady Jill Biden. Trump's White House has waived executive privilege, a right that protects many communications between the president and staff from Congress and the courts for almost all their senior staffers. All of those senior staffers. So every Biden senior staffer I just mentioned, President Trump's White House said, guess what? You don't have executive privilege here. Revoking their executive privilege. So that's often a line of defense. I have executive privilege. I don't have to testify or whatever. Trump just nuked it. Nuked them all. Trump's White House has waived executive privilege as a right that protects many communications between the president and staff from Congress and the courts for almost all of those senior staffers. That clears the way for those staffers to discuss their conversations with Biden while he was president. Representative Robert Garcia of California, top Democrat on the oversight panel, dismissed the Republicans' investigation as a waste of time. Of course he would. Oversight Republicans could be working to lower costs for American families and conducting oversight of Trump's corruption, but instead are obsessed with the past. Okay, I guess maybe they forgot about the big, beautiful bill that just passed. I think they don't need to work to lower costs anymore because how much money is going to come from that big, beautiful bill? How much? Yeah, so Representative Robert Garcia can go pound sand. Instead, we're obsessed with the past. No, we're obsessed with outing the corruption within the Biden administration. Let's be very clear. If that Autopen was in fact used, as we have shown in countless reports here, I mean, even President Trump has pointed out that you can look at these documents and you can see the anchor point from which the Autopen has to anchor to the paper so that the pen can do its job. President Trump has brought that up. So you can go back to every single executive order, pull the paper, and find out every single executive order. Peter Doocy, he went through document after document at justice.gov, and what did he find? He could only find one document that appeared to have been actually signed by Joe Biden. That's how deep this goes. Real Robert, June 23rd, and this, one of the greatest criminal conspiracies ever perpetuated against the American people. They started using the Autopen on day 5 of Biden's installation into the White House, and by June 2021, its use had skyrocketed. In other words, an effing vegetable so incapacitated they had to automate the presidency while pretending everything was normal. This was not political theater. It was a coordinated deception, a criminal conspiracy carried out by an unelected handler in the government, Congress, and the intelligence community. Let's go to this clip from the committee hearing.
Throughout, when the president signs, he communicates his assent and endorsement of the action he takes. The Autopen.
Again, this is Mr. Thomas Wold from the Autopen hearing.
Is a device that signs the president's signature to a document. The oversight, when the president signs, he communicates his assent and endorsement of the action he takes. The Autopen is a device that signs the president's signature to a document. The oversight project, of which I am a board member, has discovered that the Biden White House deployed an Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to pardons, prison commutations, executive orders, and presidential proclamations. The Oversight Project's research has found that the Biden White House first deployed the Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to a proclamation on day 5 of his administration, and that there were at least 3 different Autopen signatures in use throughout President Biden's tenure in the White House. In June 2022, the Biden White House began deploying the Autopen to sign clemency warrants and executive orders. Autopen use skyrocketed from there. We found that of the 51 clemency warrants issued during the Biden presidency, over half, 32 in total, were signed with an Autopen. And these include some of the most controversial acts of clemency of the Biden presidency, including death row commutations and the preemptive pardons of members of the Biden family, Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and more that were issued in the final days of the Biden presidency. We reviewed President Biden's schedule and his publicly available media and were unable to find any record of President Biden's personally approving these actions, such as a statement issued by the president himself to reporters. When the president signs...
Do you see what's going on here? Day 5 is when it all began. Now check this out. This was the day before the Fifth Amendment was invoked by Joe Biden's doctor. Jim Jordan speaking to Fox Business, Varney and Company.
I do think the House Judiciary Committee Chair and member of the Oversight Committee, Jim Jordan, joins me now. Good to see you, Congressman. So what specifically, what's the one question you would ask Dr. O'Connor above all others?
Well, I'm not sure he's going to, as I should point out, I'm not sure he's going to show up. And I think if he does, he's probably going to still try to assert some kind of privilege. I think the fundamental question is, doctor, what was really going on? We all saw it. The American people saw it. We know what we saw. I mean, everyone understands, even the left that defended him forever now understands that, he wasn't that President Biden wasn't up to the task. I mean, Jake Tapper, who yelled at people who, if they come on in his show and said something, now has written a book, made money telling us he was fine. Now he's making money telling us he wasn't fine, for goodness sake. So everyone understands what went on. I do think, though, short of a whistleblower coming forward, it's going to be hard to prove the whole Autopen thing, because I think everyone's going to assert that, the chief of staff said he talked to the president, and then the chief of staff communicated to so-and-so, and then we signed the documents. Unless you have a whistleblower, I think it's going to be tough to prove that, but we'll see what happens. We won't know until he gets here tomorrow what he's going to do, as Aisha pointed out.
And what did he do? He pled the Fifth. He pled the freaking Fifth. Can't make this up, folks. Here is James Comer, June 29th.
Media would attack. I'll tell you, this is totally different than what I faced with the Biden influence peddling investigation. Every time we would bring someone in for a deposition, anytime new evidence would surface in the form of bank records, Democrat politicians like Jamie Raskin and Dan Goldman would go on TV and say there was no evidence. I was misrepresenting what those bank statements and those foreign wires really meant. Then the left-wing media would attack me. No evidence. Their deposition was a bomb. Now we're bringing people in, and the media is not saying a word, and the Democrats aren't saying a word. We had that.
They're not saying a word. Have you heard any mainstream sources report on Joe Biden's doctor pleading the Fifth? I think that's kind of a big deal.
That transcribed interview, 4 hours of Nira, and they didn't say an absolute word. They only asked questions for about 5 minutes. They know there was a cover-up. The media knows it. The Tapper book went into great...
Now, did you hear what he mentioned right there? 5 hours of deposition, Nira Tanden. That was the woman who I showed you the clip of earlier, who answered one question and then darted away. I'm gonna go back.
that transcribed interview, 4 hours of Nira, and they didn't say an absolute word. They only asked questions for about 5 minutes. They know there was a cover-up. The media knows it. The Tapper book went into great detail about the cover-up, and I think they know this book by Jean-Pierre could even be more explosive than the Tapper book because it reportedly names names, whereas Tapper's book had unnamed sources. So we're going to bring all these people in, and we're going to do the American people a great service. We're going to find out who was actually calling the shots in the White House, because I think we all know that Joe Biden wasn't the one that was making the decisions. And we also want to know about the Autopen. Who was given the authority to use the Autopen? Did Joe Biden know what his name was being signed to? So we've got a lot of work to do, but so far we're not facing much. I'll tell you, this is totally...
Well, they're now facing opposition by him pleading the fifth, the doctor pleading the fifth. I want to go back to this Jim Jordan clip because there was something he said at the end.
Specifically, what's the...
Made money telling us he was fine. Now he's making money. I do think, though, short of a whistleblower coming forward, it's going to be hard to prove the whole Autopen thing.
Okay, short of a whistleblower, it's going to be hard to prove. That's what he's saying. Now keep listening.
Because I think everyone's going to assert that, the chief of staff said he talked to the president, and then the chief of staff communicated to so-and-so.
Okay, chief of staff said yes, and then communicated to the... How are they communicating? Is it all verbal? Is there a paper trail? As Peter Doocy pointed out in the very first clip we played, is there a card you have to swipe to have authorization to use the Autopen? What's the chain of command here? You can't just pull out a freaking Autopen machine and exert the president's executive authority on paper. Is it that easy? Is it that easy to just pick up an Autopen machine, stick a piece of paper in, and just type something up and then say press a button and then Joe Biden's signature just shows up? I mean, if it's that easy, then we got a serious freaking problem in this country. I mean, that machine is as good as gold with the power that it possesses. It possesses all the power of the presidency in one little machine. So where is that chain of command? Where is that chain of custody? Where is that chain of communications authorizing its use? He says a whistleblower needs to come forward. Comey says that Karine Jean-Pierre's book is going to name names. Jake Tapper's book only names unnamed sources. Well, Karine Jean-Pierre, she had to play a part in this cover-up too. So she's going to get ready to throw everybody under the bus because she doesn't want to get hung out to dry. So she's getting in front of this thing already with her book. And if she names names, because the book hasn't come out yet, but if she actually names the names, now you've got another paper trail to follow.
We signed the documents. Unless you have a whistleblower, I think it's going to be tough to prove that, but we'll see what happens. We won't know until he gets here tomorrow.
Yeah, well, like I said, what did he do? The guy pled the fifth. So we've got some serious stuff going on here. This was when the doctor was subpoenaed. If O'Connor ignores the subpoena, he's looking at prison time. Well, it looks like he didn't ignore it. He showed up and pled the fifth.
Klein. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer has subpoenaed former President Biden's personal physician. Dr. Kevin O'Connor refused to appear for a voluntary interview, and the Republicans want him to answer questions as part of the investigation into Biden's physical and mental condition while in office, and also this alleged cover-up of his decline. Congressman Jim Jordan explaining why they're pressing for answers from Biden's inner circle.
There was serious talk about the 25th Amendment. There were actions taken that Joe Biden didn't know what was going on, and people went ahead and did things and made decisions. I think we're going to need a whistleblower, but you can't get that until you start this ball rolling and start the investigation that Pam Bondi is going to do and that Chairman Comer and the Oversight Committee have undertaken as well.
Well, let's hope that Pam Bondi doesn't screw this thing up like she did the Epstein files. If you got value from this report, tap subscribe. My final thought is next. So let's take a step back. Because this is not just about signatures, it's about the legitimacy of every law, every pardon, every executive action taken in Joe Biden's name. When Dr. Kevin O'Connor pleads the Fifth rather than confirm Biden's mental capacity, he is not protecting patient privacy. He is protecting conspirators from prosecution. Think about it. Hunter's pardon, Fauci's pardon, Schiff's pardon, all potentially invalid. 4 years of policy made by unelected staffers while America sleepwalked through a puppet presidency. Neera Tanden and her cabal ran your country with a rubber stamp while the real president couldn't find his way off a stage. Yes, this is bigger than Watergate, bigger than any scandal in our history. So here's my question. Should every Biden-era executive order be immediately reversed? Yes or no? Drop your comments below. And Patriots, you can gear up with our exclusive merch. We even have a President Autopen t-shirt. Yes, we do. Shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Just go check it out. I think you're really going to like it. You can see the little picture of it up there on the screen. That doesn't do it justice. Go there, trigger a liberal, wear it with pride, because when the government's fake, at least your shirt is real.